question thing. I was wondering how people were getting that question box. It's like, where does that come from?
Yes, it's /Q to highlight the questions. So yeah, hi guys. Thanks a lot for taking time to join us, or whether you're here live or watching on the replay. I really appreciate you coming to spend a little bit of time with us. Today we're going to have a little bit of a chat about overcoming fear. Adyen here is a really good example of someone who's done that recently. And I'm just going to just do a little introduction. If you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and then we'll launch into the overcoming fear section.
Alrighty. Hello, everybody. My name is Adrian. I have been using Periscope now for about 4 months, and then found Blab because of Periscope. I think it's been 4 months. Maybe it's been longer. It's gone so fast. But I have been periscoping about my struggles and my victory over anorexia, and just trying to be, motivational or encouraging, just letting people know that struggles are real, but it's okay, because we're human, but it's like, how are we facing those struggles? Are we just sitting in that place of fear and scariness? What am I saying? Just like, are we sitting in that place of fear? Are we moving on? And I know that when I was struggling with a lot of fear, I didn't have anyone that I knew was struggling as well, because the people around me were also hiding things. And so I felt alone. I felt very like I couldn't talk to anybody. And so that's why I'm periscoping. I found Periscope. I was like, wow, this is an amazing platform. This has a lot of potential. And so I started using it to just to encourage people, let them know it's okay. And that kind of turned into like a morning motivational broadcast every day during the week. And then hopefully I'll be able to start scoping just more randomly, just about random topics, random thoughts that I have throughout the day. But I've been so busy lately, and I've been only scoping in the morning, and it's driving me nuts. So that's a little bit about me.
Cool. So you're saying about getting involved. We'll talk about Periscope for a little bit there then. With that kind of, do you have like a structure to what you're trying to put on Periscope at the moment, or is it just kind of, as you're saying, obviously time-wise at the moment it's been great, but do you have a plan for kind of what you're trying to do, and if it's regularly putting out, and also the type of content that you're trying to put out on there?
Yeah, I'm trying to put out, so in the mornings, obviously that's my one scheduled thing. Every morning, every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is when I've been doing it. And I just do a morning motivational broadcast, or I guess I like to say encouraging more than motivational, because I feel like sometimes it's more of just kind of like a pick-me-up for the day, just to get your day going well, at least in my time zone and other people's time zones. I'm like ending their day, so which is really cool. But there's just so much that hits you throughout the day that I just want to try to be a positive part of someone's day if they happen to enter into my broadcast. So that's my one scheduled thing. And I would like to use Periscope eventually to also start building a business that I have an idea for, and that would be more scheduled broadcasts. I'd like people to see the whole process of building this business. I feel like it's such a mystery. It's a mystery to me. And so I just want to be as open as I can about my journey, what I'm going through, just to help people, feel like they're not alone in whatever it is they might be going through. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I don't know what that looks like scheduled wise. I have yet to figure that out. So yeah, right now my morning ones are scheduled, and then the other ones are just kind of as I come up with something to talk about.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's always an interesting one. Now we're looking in the world of live streaming. And those kind of things. Obviously, it's no longer, you're not chatting to people around you and in your local time zone. So obviously, there's a much bigger consideration. And we've actually, when we go through our stuff, we're looking at the best times of day from Australia to be able to reach America. And obviously, then in America, there's different areas of America that we want to reach. And obviously, it's trying to fit those time zones together. So obviously, getting a good clear structure for those will be awesome for getting your message out as well, and putting them in at different times. I think it's fantastic, the motivational stuff you're doing. I've tuned in, and you can't help you're very happy and bubbly and smiley on and like you say, it might be the beginning of your day, but it's the end of a lot of other people. I think that's actually brilliant, because you're obviously starting people's day brilliantly where you are, but also some people have maybe had a tough day. It's a good way for them to wrap up and not kind of be focused on the bad points of their day. So I think hats off to you for staying so positive and being able to share that positive message kind of globally there. So the other thing I'd say there is, even for your own time zone, I'd challenge you to maybe do one on the end of your time zone so that it becomes the beginning of the people. So you get maybe a beginning and end, maybe alternate. So one day it's the morning and one day it's the evening, so that you could do it both ways.
That's a good idea. I've been trying, like, I was so excited this week. I was like, I'm going to do like an afternoon recap. So I'm going to broadcast around noon my time, because that's kind of like in the morning, the West Coast time. I'm like, I'm going to do this every single day this week. Something has happened at noon and I'm just like, So I'm going to try to do that. I want to do like an intensive my story, because I feel like people have heard bits and pieces of my story, but I would like to do kind of like an intensive version and really delve into my story. So at noon, I would like to just kind of take half hour, however long it is, and each day of the week, I don't know if it's going to be next week or the week after, but really talk about my story. So like, this is what was going on freshman year, and that would be like on Monday. And this is what was going on sophomore year, because when I was struggling, it was in college. So it's still pretty fresh, I guess. It's been 3 years since I've been in the healing process of all that, almost 3 years. So I just want to be able to put words to how people are feeling, because I had no idea how to explain how I was feeling. But I find that when I do attempt to explain it, people are like, yeah, oh my gosh, right there with you. Yes, it's exactly what I'm feeling. So I just feel like it's really important to just express it in words so that I can give other people words to explain how they're feeling. So I think maybe I'll do that.
I think that's a really key thing. And obviously through live streaming, people are kind of connecting and realizing one of the brilliant uses of it is exactly what you're saying there, is being able to show people that they're not alone, whether that's I'm struggling in business, whether I'm struggling with personal issues, whatever it is to realize that you're not the only person there. And obviously, sometimes it's easier to make that connection with someone maybe the other side of the world that you don't necessarily know, and say, hold on, this is a common problem that other people are facing as well. And I think that's a very admirable thing, that, you're putting your story out there and sharing that in a very real way with people. So I've got a lot of admiration for you for doing that. So I'm gonna do this a little bit backwards, and I'm gonna start at the end, and we're gonna work backwards through the questions here. Right. So obviously, there was a bit of a attention and hype from the social media community, and a lot of support for you around your entering the One Piece competition. Obviously, it's kind of blew up, and I know that a lot of the guys like Brian and people like that got behind you and were sharing that. So obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, there's a One Piece model competition, and if you're in here and you're on the chat, there is a picture there. That's the picture that went out through social, and then there's a link for a tweet there that is the link to that whole competition. So you just talk us through kind of how you found that competition and the decision you made to put yourself forward.
Yeah, so that onesies, they are so comfortable, and I've always wanted one just because they looked amazing. And so I bought one a couple years ago, and then I bought that second one, the blue one, recently because they had a huge sale, and they're just the most comfortable clothes ever. And I've always been obsessed. Like, the beginning of my struggle with anorexia, I was literally obsessed with fashion. Now I love it. It's something that I enjoy. But starting college, in high school, I was a very shy girl. I was like, I tried to be invisible because I was terrified of being judged. So I had very few friends in school. I hated school because it felt like I had no one to talk to, and I was constantly looking over my shoulder, just waiting for someone to make fun of me. And I wasn't ever really bullied, but I was afraid of it. And so I kind of, shrank back. And I started to kind of get a little more confident in high school and make friends. And I met my husband in high school, so that was good. So it was that high school was a better time, but I was obsessed with the fashion world because I was afraid of being seen, but I wanted to be seen. I wanted to have a platform. I wanted people to look at me and be like, oh, wow, she's so pretty, because I felt invisible for so long that I guess I really wanted some validation of, no, you are pretty. You're not invisible. You're not that awkward girl you used to be kind of thing. So once I got into college, I was watching modeling shows. I was reading all the magazines. I wasn't a fashion designer. I wanted to be, but my mom did not really want me in that world because I think she saw where I was headed. So she was like, no, Adrian, graphic design, do not do fashion. So I was very much a mother pleaser. So, but she really did have my best intentions at heart. And I'm glad that I did go into graphic design. I don't know what would have happened if I'd gone full force into fashion, but I was still obsessed with it. I was trying sort of to model. I was connecting with, I went to an art school, so I was connecting with fashion students in art school and doing, modeling for them during the year when they needed someone to try on their clothing so they could fit it right and everything. So I was doing all that, being inundated with the magazines and everything. I was constantly looking at, how her body shape and her body shape. And oh my gosh, these are the body shapes that are being celebrated and seen as beautiful. And look what's on the runway. And, and I just would look at myself, and then I would go to the gym, and they have these full length mirrors at the gym. And I'd be looking at my body and just being like, that is not what I'm seeing in the magazine. If I want to be in this industry, I have to look like that. And I was a soccer player. I'd played for 17 years. So I had, big soccer thighs. I had muscle, and I was something I'd been so proud of, my soccer muscle. I was suddenly not ashamed, but I was like, oh, I don't want that anymore. I want to be stick thin. So I was obsessed with fashion in a very unhealthy way. So fast forward to now, where it's turned into something that I love, something that I'm able to express myself with, which is why I open my motivation broadcast every morning with an outfit of the day, just because I like to express myself with what I wear. And sometimes what I'm wearing is a little quirky, but I like it. It's me. So that's what I feel like fashion is. It's just a way to show people who you are, what you enjoy. Do you like bright, crazy colors, or are you more, subdued color kind of person? Whatever it is, I think it's just an awesome way to express your personality. And because of that, I saw the one piece, because I bought a one piece from them. I get the emails, you're automatically on their newsletter. And so it said that they were having a competition. I was like, oh, that'd be really super cool, because I love one pieces. They're so comfortable, and I would love to be able to wear them and have my hair done. Who wouldn't want to do that? That sounds like so much fun, and go to like a really cool location. And I was like, that'd be so cool if I was able to win it or be a model, because then I could scope about just like that whole world and being real about that whole world, because that world is just, it feels very, I don't know, perfect. Like you have to be perfected, all this kind of stuff. So I was but I was nervous because I was looking at the pictures of the people who'd already entered, and I was like, oh, I can't. No, they're so pretty. Oh my goodness, I couldn't enter. There's no point. I would never win. I'm not gonna do that. So I kind of started talking myself out of it. I was like, oh my gosh, what do you tell people on Periscope every single day? That you're beautiful no matter who you are, what you look like. It's what you've been through, your experiences. That's what makes you beautiful. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll enter. So I was nervous, but I was like, this is silly. So I entered, and then I was like, I didn't talk about it at all. I didn't tell anybody. And then I was thinking, okay, now that's also silly, because I did something that I was afraid of, kind of. I was afraid of the fashion world because I was afraid I wasn't good enough. It's like, finally, I'm going to do it. And then I was like, and I should probably also talk about it and just be like, okay, guys, I did something I was afraid of. What are you going to do? Because I tell people that, and I want to be able to live it out. So, and so I scoped about it, and Brian Fanzo was in my scope. There weren't that many people, but he was in it. And so he takes that picture and tags all these big people. And I was like, oh my gosh, never did I ever expect something like that to happen. So that's kind of that story. That was long, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's really good. And there you go. I mean, that's a really good example again from how the social world can kind of take hold of something and help people. Obviously, there's a big fear around people. A lot of people have a fear around getting onto these kind of live streaming platforms and things straight away because of trolling and things like that. But this is a really good example of the exact opposite of that, of a very supportive community, and picking up things where you're just like, oh, I'm just saying this in a quiet little room, and kind of elevating it up for you in front of a lot more people. So I mean, that's a fantastic story that I know I'll be using over and over again when I'm talking to people about kind of getting involved, and taking that first step and overcoming the fear to put their story out there. And I love the fact that you touched on the fact that obviously the fashion industry and everything like that has this is how you should look and everything like that, but you touched on the fact that actually beauty isn't just skin deep. It's a lot about your story and who you are. I mean, you could be the most pretty person by industry standards, but a complete bitch, as opposed to someone who has a very pure heart. They might have been through the worst situations, and obviously how that leads you as a person to deal with others. Obviously, that in itself is a whole different level of beauty, is how you interact and deal with and support other people. And I think what you're doing by telling your story and opening up and being very real and raw with people is kind of, it's a whole different level of beauty there. Just being able to help and support those other people. So I think that's fantastic. So you're saying obviously you had this whole situation, and kind of the big fear for you is not so much the jumping onto the social and things like that, I guess, is overcoming and talking about the situation that you've been through. You said you had a struggle with anorexia and things like that. I mean, I'd like to jump back a little bit to there. And with the whole anorexia thing, how did you find yourself getting into that situation, and like how long and how far into the situation did it get before you realized, hold on, this is now a problem and I need to deal with it?
Yeah. So I guess it kind of started senior year of high school, kind of in the summer, because up until I graduated from high school, I had had soccer every single summer, every single day. So I was like, that was what had kind of consumed my attention. And then I was waiting to start college in the fall. And I remember just kind of thinking to myself that I wanted to start off on a really good note, because I was kind of shy in high school. It took me a while to make a lot of friends. So I was like, I'm going to be confident and I'm going to make friends, and people are going to look at me and be like, she's cool, I want to be her friend. Because I felt like I had never been that person before, and I really wanted to. So I started really paying attention to how I presented myself. I wanted to present myself in such a way that I could control what others thought of me, if that makes any sense whatsoever. It's ridiculous, because you can never control. Oh my goodness. Our amount of control that we actually have in our daily lives is very, very small. And I wanted to control everything, which drove me up a wall. But I was constantly comparing myself to all the girls around me, and either thinking, okay, yeah, you're better than her, or whoa, you're totally way out of her league, so it was just absurd, coming up with a hierarchy for every single room that I was in, which is absolutely exhausting. And it's funny how once I got to know some of the girls, I'd be like, oh wow, yeah, I'm totally not as good as she is, because I would judge on appearances first, and then I'd get to know them and I'd be like, wow, they're really nice people. And I would start seeing them as beautiful. And then because I knew how I was viewing them initially in my heart, I was just like, wow, I'm so not a good person. So I was just constantly up and down, up and down. And let's see, freshman year, it was just kind of like, it wasn't too bad freshman year. It was kind of comparing, you're the usual kind of, wow, that girl's gorgeous. Okay, I'm not going to stand next to her because I don't want people to compare me, kind of thing. But it wasn't terrible. I wasn't even thinking about not eating, because we had a cafeteria and there were some really good cookies there all the time, and I was eating those up like nobody's business, So that was not really a concern of mine just yet. But I do remember at the end of freshman year, I was looking in the full-length mirror in the gym, And I was looking at my legs thinking to myself, when I come back sophomore year, I don't want my thighs to touch, because I had just heard of the whole like thigh gap thing. I was like, oh, apparently I have to have that now. So I was like, that's got to be a thing. So I was like, well, I'll just lose weight this summer. And I had no idea what eating healthy was, because I didn't really grow up eating healthy. I was just eating whatever my parents put in front of me. So I didn't ever worry about that. And then I come back sophomore year, and my roommate had lost some weight and she looked amazing. And I was just like, oh no, she lost weight and I didn't. Crap, I failed. I'm so bad. And so I started watching everything that she ate, and I would try to eat a little bit less. It kind of became a competition. And that's where it really started. Was I was not only comparing myself to other girls and even guys for like the dumbest things, like, oh, they're so much more fun, or they had their personality, like whatever. I was comparing myself to everybody. And so I started watching everything, and it became a competition. Who could eat less? Who could work out more? And I started really cutting out my meals. If no one was watching, I wasn't eating anything. And I remember it got to a point sophomore year where I was eating a green apple for lunch, green tea with honey for breakfast, and maybe, if people were watching me, something for dinner, because I was so obsessed with losing weight, because I thought if I got to a certain, and I didn't even really know what that point was, but I thought if I dropped enough weight, I would be happy. At some point, I was going to be happy, because I was going to be the smallest girl in the room, and that equaled happy in my mind, which is just crazy, because I was miserable. The more I tried to compete with everybody that I saw, the more miserable I became. So figure that one out, So that's kind of where it went, I guess. Did that answer the question? I'm rambling.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. I just kind of wanted to get kind of an overview of kind of how it developed and how you ended up there, and kind of what the contributing factors were. And I mean, obviously, people in daily life are constantly comparing themselves, whether it's their looks, whether it's, am I achieving enough, do I know as much as the next person? Especially, I mean, I deal in a digital media world, and there's constantly people say, oh, well, this person knows a lot more than you, and there's the whole comparison thing going on. It's like, pick what you're good at and concentrate on that, and do that. And like you say, from kind of that point of view, on kind of self-image and body image, it's really important. You could look and say, oh, like I'm carrying a little bit more weight than this person, or this person, that even down to physical attributes of this person runs faster or can jump higher. Why is it they can do it and I can't? And obviously everybody is different, and that I suppose in itself is one of the things about kind of beauty, is that there are so many different people, and that's what makes the world beautiful as a whole. Is that if everybody looked exactly the same, it'd just be like everybody had been churned out of a factory. And obviously, unfortunately, the image that we get from the beauty industry is very much that way, that everybody looks in a certain way and dresses a certain way. And obviously, that's not exactly how it is in real life. And I mean, there have been various campaigns, I don't know over your side of the water, but there's a lot of campaigns more towards kind of real bodies and things like that, and showing people. I know Dove as a brand have done a lot of real beauty stuff, where they've even called out the beauty industry that they work in, and done kind of, here's what really happens when someone appears on a billboard, and worked it all the way backwards to show you, hold on, this person has blemishes, they're maybe not as skinny as they look on the images that you see. And in fact, those images that you see in the magazines and things like that are not even the person that they took the photo of in the first place. And it kind of begs the question why they bother, why they don't just computer generate them in the first place. Right,
exactly. Just create a bunch of Sims models and dress them up and be done with it, like.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously it's a very hot topic for, for guys and girls. I mean, I know a close friend of mine here in Australia, a guy who's struggled with bulimia, again, to do with his image and comparing himself to other people. So it is a very real problem, and it's great to have people like yourself who are happy to openly talk about it. I mean, especially in a community like this with live streaming, where, again, your message can get out globally with the fact we can now broadcast you know, it's our own broadcast platform now, so we can get the message out how we want, where we want. No, you know, no media, no beauty industry saying, hey, you can't say that, you can't tell us, you know, we can't just eat lettuce for lunch, you know, that kind of conversation. And it's now is probably the best time, because the accessibility to sharing your message is so readily available through all these different, you know, through Periscope and Meerkat and Blab and all these different live streaming platforms. So it's a great time to get that message out. And I think just what you're doing and sharing your message and inspiring people, and you've even taken it a step further and hey, let's just keep people motivated, because like you say, one of the big things of why that situation developed was to do with how you felt. And obviously if you felt really happy about yourself, then you're less likely to do the comparison in the first place. So
yeah, exactly. And that's one thing I learned too, is that it doesn't matter how you feel about yourself, but it's like what you believe. Because I could be feeling fabulous one morning, you know, like I remember there's so many days at school and I was like, this is a great start. I ate nothing yesterday, so this is going to be a good day. Like I'm bound to lose weight today, and I'd be feeling really happy, and I'd be like walking along. And it took like 2 seconds. It took me seeing someone who I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be as pretty as her, or me, you know, catching a reflection of myself that I didn't like, whatever it was, I could go from here to here in 2 seconds and be like, that's it, I'm never eating again. You know, like just the craziest things. So I have found that it's what I believe about myself, what I know to be true, who I am, that is where the worth lies, not in how I feel, because my feelings are so rapidly changing. So, and I know that my emotions, I'm a more emotional person, so my emotions can run pretty high. So if I'm having a bad day, I'm having a bad day, and nothing I see in the mirror is going to look good, you know? So
yeah, and I mean, that's a very real problem for a lot of people. This kind of comes on to a slightly different topic in kind of managing your own feelings and emotions and expectations of, obviously there's a lot of external pressures on you from, you know, whether you're consuming media or it's other people saying things. And I quite often have this chat with, you know, my friends and family and people like that I'm kind of there as a support network for, in the fact that you touched on it earlier about the fact that everybody wants to have this control, that actually you can control you can't control the things that happen around you and your environment and the other people, but what you can control to an extent is how you choose to react to those things. And then your reaction is what then causes the feelings that you're experiencing. You know, if someone's horrible to you, you can either take it to heart and it becomes, they're horrible to you, it's a throwaway comment to them and they've forgotten about it by the end of the day. But to you, you can either take it on board and be like, oh, I can't believe this person said I was fat or whatever it is. Or you can be like, great, but at least I might be a little bit carrying a little bit more weight, but you know, you're not a very nice person, to kind of laugh it off as a throwaway comment. And it's that dealing with how those situations come up. And one of the things there as well is where we were talking about fear is kind of the topic, and overcoming fear. It's actually a really interesting one. Whilst we're talking about emotions and how people are dealing with those, is one of my favorite phrases from kind of books I've read and research. I forget exactly where it comes from, but it's the phrase that the only place that fear can exist in is in our thoughts of the future. Because you can only be fearful of something that hasn't happened. If it's happened, you're already good with it. So you can only be scared of something that might happen, but at the same time, it might happen or it might not. So why waste your energy thinking about that it might happen when there's just as much possibility that it may not happen? You know, people worrying about, I might be late to disappointment. I might disappoint this person. You might not. You might walk in and they might be like, wow, this person's amazing. You don't know what the situation is until you're in it. And so it's more about focusing your energy onto things that you can have control over. You know, there's obviously, you know, worrying about, I'm not going to deliver. Obviously, that's not saying just rock up and hope it goes well. Obviously, do preparation, but there's certain things that you can't control. And obviously, a lot of people put too much of their energy into worrying about those things. And I think that that's kind of really important.
I know I did.
While we were talking about the fear side of things, can you just talk us through kind of how you ended up getting into doing live streaming? Because obviously a lot of people at the moment, and one of the hot topics with live streaming is people being scared to to get themselves on camera. And whether that's because they don't think they'll deliver good content, whether it's because they think, oh, you know, I'm having a bad hair day, or I'm a little bit overweight, or I'm a bit spotty today, whatever it is. What was your first experience in getting into it, and how you overcame that initial fear of getting onto live?
Yeah, because my first couple broadcasts were so awkward. They were so awkward. I set my phone up and everything and was like, okay, this is going to be great. And I would like turn the broadcast on and nothing would happen. And I would just be like, okay, so, you know, cause I joined about when Periscope was about a month old. So people were still figuring out how to give content. And really the only content on Periscope at that point was Periscope tips and tricks. so I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. People are going to talk to me. And so I like got on, I was like, ask questions, and nothing happened. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is really weird. So I like would try to talk about something, which was just rambling for maybe 2 minutes. And then I would kind of freak out internally and get off, you know, it's like, oh, that's so awful. It's like, I knew Periscope could be awesome. I just didn't know how to use it. And so initially I was just like, ooh, I can start a broadcast and people can talk about what they learned that day on Periscope. It's just like, it could be like Periscope College. Oh my goodness, who wants to go back to college? And so I had a couple of different ideas. And then I remember thinking to myself, like, what on earth can I talk about? Like, what do I know that I can talk about? Because I just graduated college. I don't have a business. I have a job. Like, I'm boring. There's nothing to talk about. And then I started thinking, like, what is the one thing I'm passionate about? And that was, you know, helping people just know that they can love themselves. And so I was like, what if I were to tell my story and do something with that? And I was like, who on earth would want to hear that? No, I'm not going to do that. And then I have a couple girls that I work with here, younger girls in high school that I work with from my church and everything. And I know that I'm able to connect with them because of my story. And so I was like, well, maybe more people need to hear it. So I was like, well, I'll try it. I'll give it a few weeks. If nothing happens, then I won't keep doing this. It'll be silly. So I started doing it, and it was really awkward at first. And I went back and I looked at some of my titles from my first few scopes. I was like, what was I thinking? Oh my goodness gracious. And I just kind of kept doing it. And then Robert Stern found my scopes and promoted me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. And I got like 10 or 12 new followers that day. And I was like, this is so cool. So I just kind of kept doing it. And over time, I got connected with Susie, who's in Italy, and she has the Body Positivity Tribe. And so now I've become a really active member of that tribe on Periscope, and just started slowly building from there. It was really awkward at first, but if you have something that you're passionate about, whatever it is, then you can get on Periscope and talk about it, you know, regardless of fears or anything like that. Somebody, especially if you're passionate about it, because you're not going to shut up. You're going to keep talking, and people who want to hear it will come. They will find you. Don't tell me how. I have no idea how, but I have found people that, you know, just going into random scopes, and I'm like, wow, this person is so cool. I got to follow them. And then there's so many big people now who promote other awesome scopers. So it's just like, there's just so much to learn and hear. So yeah, it's really cool.
I mean, one of the things with that is that, like you say, your initial thing was, who's going to want to hear my story and things like this. Yeah. But, you know, it's the same as why when you go into a bookshop is there such a wide range of books, because not every book suits every person, and the same, not every story and not every personality suits everyone. And you may have a very similar story to somebody else. You know, it may be somebody else who struggled with anorexia and overcome the problem, but how you tell your story and your personality when you tell your story will appeal to some people as opposed to the other person telling the story. And that's exactly it, especially around topics for live streaming. You know, what am I talking about? And rather than hints and tips on how to do it, the really valuable content is those. I mean, Periscope, the concept behind it is kind of popping up in someone's life and getting kind of a snapshot of what's going on in their life. And this is that type of content that you're talking about being very real and telling your story is exactly kind of the primary purpose of that type of platform. And so I think people forget and they put this pressure on. They're like, I have to do it. It's the latest shiny object. I have to be involved. I have to be on Blab. What shows can I create? Oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do on live streaming.
Yes.
But actually those stories, those are the valuable content. And I mean, it's not crafted and created. It's something that's very real. It's your story. And like you say, the things that you're passionate about, I mean, we talked about Brian Fanzo earlier. You put Brian Fanzo on and say, so tell us about social media. You don't need to say anything. We're done for the hour. Brian's off.
Yes.
And likewise, different people on different topics. So, I mean, I think you absolutely nailed it with, if you're going to do something like live streaming and things like that, is find what you're passionate about. It's the same as actually for life is a really good example, is do something you're passionate about. When you have to get up, and it's a dull day, it's miserable, you got up and you banged your foot when you got out of bed. It's when you're doing something that you're really passionate about that will make you push through all of those problems and will make you still want to go and do it and do those kind of things. I mean, Chocolate Johnny being a great example. The guy loves chocolate, he loves people, and he loves social media. And like the
good combination,
like the perfect package of showing, this is what I do, this is me. And I've heard time and time again, because he's only like 20 minutes down the road from me and I'm down there quite a lot. I hear from people, I met Chocolate Johnny and he's the same as he is on Periscope. I'm like, that's because it's a very real thing. It's live streaming. This is me, and you get to know the people. So I think people put too much worry in. Is the same as when you're at school, when you're in a work. You're not going to get on with everyone. You get on there and you show your personality, and some people will like it and stay, and other people won't. And you'll get a natural divide, and there's not, oh my God, these 300 people left my scope. It's not. That's people's, again, that comes down to people's fear and worrying, and they're worrying about the wrong side, right? Why worry about the 300 people that left? Why not concentrate on the 50 people who stayed? And why are these 50 people sat here? They're giving up an hour of their time to sit and listen to me tell my story. Why am I important to them? And to craft and deliver your content to those people, I think is kind of the key with the live streaming side of things. So I'm just going to have a quick look through and see if there's any bits on the chat here for questions wise. I love that you come on and you're sharing your story just in such a real way as well. Like I say, we know you're doing it on your own platform, but I kind of wanted to pull it together and to show it to a new audience as well, of people that maybe are our audience or maybe not yours as well. That hopefully we can get you a few more followers as well. That'll boost you too. So someone asked where these are published. So when these go live, because they're recorded on Blab, they will be available at the URL where they are. But we also repurpose them. So we get a copy of the video and the audio, so we can repurpose that, and then we share the links through our social. Awesome. So I don't know if anyone who's in the chat had any more questions, or if we managed to cover it. Hopefully we did a good job of covering those things. But if anyone had any questions, please do fire them up in the side there. So I did notice while you were talking, there's a couple of people said, I did notice people saying about how it is just really important to just kind of be true to yourself as well. And obviously that's something that you're doing right now is, this is who I am, love me for me, and embracing that. And that makes a whole change to how you deliver everything when you're talking to people, dealing with people, whether it's broadcasting, whatever the medium is, in person or online. That makes a really, really big impact, I think, for how people connect with you as well. So I think I'm going to wrap it up there, because it's a kind of nice time slot for people who wanted to watch it back.
Z and Co just had a question about how did I get to the point where I needed to change for the better?
Good question.
That was a rough point. That was I was in a 5-year program at school. So it was my pre-junior year. So it was the third year of college. And I was pushing people away because I was terrified that people were going to notice what I was doing. And people already had noticed. People were asking me questions because I'd lost weight, and they were like, what is going on? And my personality had kind of disappeared because I was just very one note. I wasn't too happy or too sad. I was just very monotone, and that's not me. And so people were noticing that, and I was pushing people away because I was so self-hating, self-shaming, self-deprecating that I felt like my mind and my heart were just black. Like it was just depressing, despair. I was never going to be good enough. I was never going to get over this. I felt like I was constantly being sucked back down. Whenever I was able to be happy for a little bit, I just got sucked back down into it. And so I just felt hopeless. And so I pushed people away because I was not able to love myself. So I did not understand and did not want other people to love me and waste their time loving me. So I pushed people away. And one of the people I was trying to push away was my boyfriend at the time. We'd been dating for almost 4 years at that time. So we'd been together for a long time, and then we ended up getting married. But before that, I broke up with him, and it was the hardest thing ever. And then the next day I was freaking out. I was like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? I have to have a boyfriend. Oh my gosh. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to call him. I have to have a boyfriend. I can't not have a boyfriend. And I stopped in that moment, and I felt like I'm a believer. And so I professed to put my trust in my identity in Christ. And I was not living that at all. And I hate hypocrisy. It's one of my pet peeves. And I was living the most hypocritical life. I was saying that, yeah, Lord, my identity is found in you. And I was completely finding my identity in how I looked and my boyfriend. And at that moment, I just stopped, and I felt like the question that was being asked me was, Adrian, where are you finding your identity? Are you finding it in me, in the fact that I created you? This is God speaking in my mind. I was like, am I finding it in who I was created to be, or Colin, my husband or boyfriend at the time, and my physical body, which was going to change. It was going to change in the next 5 years. Like, our bodies are constantly changing. So if I was going to find my identity in something that was constantly changing, wow, that was going to be rough. And so it was just a straight up question that I had to answer and just realize what the heck it was I was doing to myself. And then 5 or so months later, after the breakup, and then we talked about everything. I was like, wow, this is what I've been doing to myself. And then about 5 months later, I finally admitted out loud to myself and to my friends, okay, yeah, I was struggling with anorexia, because I had been in such denial. But it just got to the point where I was forced essentially to recognize what it was I was doing to myself, and the fact that I was putting my identity in something that was so temporary that I was going to be having to constantly redefine myself. And that's exhausting. So exhausting and completely worthless. So yeah, crazy.
She just put in a follow-up question there. That was a really good one. So what's the kind of one piece of advice that you would give to kind of young girls that are going through a similar thing? Because obviously it's not uncommon that girls go through this, because there's the whole reading lots of magazines and that kind of thing, and the whole media pressure to look a certain way, behave a certain way, consume certain products and brands and things. So what's your kind of one piece of advice you would give to people that are going through?
I would say, first of all, what are you finding your identity in? Is it something changing, something temporary? So knowing who you are is very, very, very important, because when you know who you are, that is something that you can stand firm in. And that's really hard, especially like that's what's so hard about it. Like, you're in high school, you're in college, you're discovering things about yourself. You're discovering, hey, I can actually do this, or okay, no, I can't do that. Like, you're discovering your likes, your dislikes, you're discovering new friends who point out new sides or bring out new sides of yourself. So it's a constantly ever changing, world. And sometimes we have to adapt to it, but constantly knowing that you were created, like I get passionate about this, but we are, each and every single one of us are created for a purpose. Like knowing that we have a purpose, none of us are by accident, and nothing that we've gone through is an accident. It's all, to bring us to who we are now, who we're going to be in the future, as far as, our experiences. Because every single day we learn a little something, we change somehow a little bit, whatever, our perspective on something might change. So I'm a very different person now than I was even a year ago. But knowing that we have a purpose, like, so I lost my job recently and I'm just like, oh crap, what am I going to do? I have no, like, and that's a bit of a confidence, buster. And so it's kind of like, am I good enough for this? Like, crap, what am I going to do now? And it's just like something that steadies me is just knowing, hey, you do have skills. You're here for a reason. Like, you're not an accident. You have a purpose. You have a path. It's not 100% clear to you right now, but it is there. Your shoes are only your shoes. Only you can fill them. So it's up to you whether or not you want to step into that. And it's like, that looks so different for everybody that it's almost like, I don't know, what kind of advice can you give? Because again, like, like you said with the bookstore, I like some kinds of books that other people definitely don't like. So, it's I think knowing that you have a purpose, knowing that you were created for a reason. At least that's what I believe with, my religious background and everything. I believe that every single one of us has a purpose for where we are, for who we are. And denying that is like, that's going to just run you ragged. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of what I would say.
I love the analogy you used about that these are your shoes. I think especially talking about shoes is one that will resonate with the girls, is that these are your shoes and only you can fill them. So, you need to be true to yourself over and above anything else. And I think that that's a really brilliant takeaway message for everybody who's listening, is just to be true to yourself and find who you are as a person, and focus on that rather than focusing kind of not selfishly, but inwardly to understand yourself rather than trying to focus on all of these external factors. I think is a really key takeaway. Just be true to yourself and focus on being the best you that you can be. So yeah, I think that's brilliant. So I'm gonna wrap up there and end the broadcast. So I don't know how you are for time, if you wanted to stay and talk to people for a few minutes.